So who was the best signing of the season? We're going to run through the nominees and then give you guys an answer based on the stats, impact, and of course the transfer fee. Value for money, always crucial. Let's begin with Cole Palmer. Kim, he left your club at the start of the season. Off you go, don't need you. Wow, and he was cheap as well, actually, sort of. 42.5 million. Wow, can't believe I just said that sentence. 24 goals, 9 of those penalties. 14 assists. That's 38 goal involvement.
That's good, isn't it? It's not bad. It's not bad at all. I mean, yesterday when he scored, my WhatsApp, my Man City chat was just pinging, and it was people who'd gone back about 9 months, and they were just replying to messages that I'd sent, like, yeah, get rid of him, 40 million, unbelievable bargain. He didn't look like this player at Man City, honestly. Like, he would score some fantastic goals where he would come in off the right and shoot on his left foot, but if someone had told you at the beginning of the season Cole Palmer's going to be one of the most productive players in the Premier League in centre mid for a Chelsea team who have absolutely no cohesion and no real structure throughout them, you'd be completely baffled. I can't believe what he's doing.
Who did you see then? What did you think his kind of weaknesses were, frailties were at the time?
He seemed very slow and he seemed quite weak, and I thought that as a winger that's a little bit of a problem. And of course, it's quite difficult being a City fan because not in general, but you're comparing players. You're comparing like Cole Palmer to like Mahrez.
Yeah.
And he comes on for Mahrez, and he's obviously going to be weaker, especially as an 18, 19-year-old who hasn't had many games. So I didn't think that it was a loss at all, apart from when I heard that Chelsea were willing to pay 42.5 million, and I thought, okay, they've seen something that I haven't seen. And the games in which I've seen him play, even if he has produced, it's a Charity Shield or it's a USA friendly. So I'm not enamoured by someone cutting in off the left and shooting. It's a fantastic goal, but I'm not thinking.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You're going to have an amazing influence over our season, but the way he's gone on, I mean, 24 goals and 14 assists is unbelievable.
So to explore that, it goes into the Chelsea team. They are all at disarray. Didn't have much function to them for the bulk of the season. Is he looking so great because 9 pens in those 24, which is helpful, right? But secondly, because at Man City you've got all these wonderful cogs that all fit in perfectly. With Chelsea, it's not been that, so there's been that higher reliance on him. As Chelsea get better, will he get better, or do you think there might be a sort of change, a sort of levelling out of his impact as everyone else? He's not as relied upon.
I actually do think that will be the case. Now, this is not to take anything away from Cole Palmer, because to come into a Chelsea side that, as you mentioned, has been a mess for most of the season. I think they've got things together in the last few months, but generally speaking, they've been all over the place. To come in and kind of take on that mantle, and from speaking to someone who covers Chelsea really closely, from what I understood at the start of the season, the plan wasn't for him to come in and start every week. The plan was, this is a signing for the years to come. Right. And they've almost been forced into using him, and he's really developed off the back of that. But
he's taking it, isn't he?
He's taking it, absolutely. Yeah. I think the fact that he is quite confident in his own ability, I think that comes across. And the way he carries himself, I think has actually helped him, because in that Chelsea side where we were all saying all season, no leaders, no standout performers, he's gone and said, you know what, I'll have that role. I'll take on that mantle and I'll do it. And I think that's really benefited him. I do think in time, I'm not going to say that Cole Palmer's going to regress or anything, but I think as Chelsea get better, I think his individual impact might just level out a little bit with some of the other players.
That's really interesting, because we were speaking off air before about managers, about this certain place and a certain time where people just fit. And I think he's found that at Chelsea. And I actually haven't watched the games and thought he's so good because he's so much better than everyone else on the pitch. I've thought, this is a young man who's never really played at the top level before he's come on in individual games, like I'm saying, in pre-season friendlies or in Community Shields, and now he's playing week in, week out for a Premier League giant in Chelsea, and he is running the show. He's their main player. And not only with his feet, you can see him dictating with his hands where players should go. And I think, like, I'm watching that and I'm thinking, I don't want to go overboard, but that seems like a generational talent to me. That's like a Bellingham-style player where you're affecting it with your feet, but you're affecting the game with your mind and your words as well, which I'm amazed from a young player who couldn't get into the City team to do this for Chelsea now in midfield, which wasn't even his original position. I think his ceiling's massive.
That's the thing I wonder with him is just like, as you say, if Chelsea are to be title contenders, and he's the top guy of that, then his ceiling needs to continue to rise. But
And I think
he's definitely got the attitude. We've got lots of nominees to get through. So
It's a confidence thing, though, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you go into a team and you are the standout player, instantly your confidence grows. And maybe he needed that at that point.
He needs to be the guy.
Because at City, you come in, you can be great, but you're not De Bruyne.
Yeah.
But he's made himself the guy. As you were saying, he wasn't brought in to be a starter. He's made himself the guy. And I think his confidence is deserved. And I honestly think his ceiling is huge.
Yeah. Joao Pedro, £20 million club record fee at the time for Brighton. I think he was, hipster's choice at the start of the season. People thinking he could do some great stuff. And he has, 20 goals and 2 assists, done really well in the Europa League for Brighton as well. Maybe being shadowed a little bit by the whole team, not just being what we wondered they could be. Thoughts on Joao Pedro?
Yeah, I think he's been a brilliant signing. I think when it became obvious he was going to leave Watford, I was kind of wondering where his ceiling would be. I thought maybe Newcastle might potentially take a punt on him, but I think Brighton's the perfect place for him. He's very, very fast, very agile. He's got a lethal finish. Of course, he does take penalties, which helps. But yeah, I think he's been absolutely exceptional. And I think he's been better than anyone thought he was going to be. Like, you could tell at Watford, a relegated Watford, you could tell that he was a standout player, but you never know exactly how good they're going to be in a good side. And he's been one of Brighton's best players this year. I think he's had a great season.
Yeah. I think, talk about ceilings, I think he's got a huge ceiling as well, actually. Do you know what I was just thinking there? I think him learning under someone like Danny Welbeck, I think is going to be absolutely huge for him, because I think he's probably got more talent than Danny Welbeck.
Absolutely.
But I always think with Danny Welbeck, I'm always like, why is he still there? The reason he's still there is he's a really smart footballer, Danny Welbeck.
And just signed a new contract as well.
That's it. Well, there you go. Yeah. So I think it's a good place for him to learn.
Yeah.
You can imagine Joao Pedro really kind of stepping on, and then Brighton go and get another big fee for him. Micky van der Ven, Harry, talk about your rival's centre back for me.
I think he's been outstanding. He's been a really, really top signing for Tottenham, not only because he's got all the individual attributes that you look for in a modern day centre half, really comfortable on the ball, quick across the ground, strong, physical when he needs to be. I think he's been so key in allowing Ange Postecoglou to start playing his way. If you looked at Tottenham's group of centre-halves before, with the exception of maybe Romero, you were looking at players that probably needed to be sitting in a deeper line and needed the game to be in front of them rather than having to worry about spaces in behind them. Micky van der Ven is equally comfortable at doing both of those things. He's played at left-back the last couple of games as well, and I think he's shown his adaptability there as well. I just think to get a centre-half of that quality nowadays for less than £40 million, it's got to be seen as a bargain.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of work to do at Tottenham, isn't there? But I think that centre-back pairing, if you can keep them both fit and on the pitch, I think with Romero being that sort of tenacious one going forward a lot of the time, and Van der Ven just sweeping stuff up all the time, I think you got a really lovely pair there, especially with the way that they want to play. And I think technically he's been really, really impressive for me as well.
I think he's been absolutely exceptional. I mean, I remember the FA Cup game against City. Ake scored in the last minute, and I've never seen a quicker defender. In the pitch live, I couldn't believe how unbelievable.
You can hear him, can't you? Well, I feel like when you're sprinting, you can hear him.
You can hear him. You can hear him gassing, and it's like he has sort of like the pace and the attributes of like a Kyle Walker, but then he's got the composure and the ability on the ball of like a John Stones. I think he's an unbelievable player, and really, for sure, one of the best centre backs of the season. And he's only going to get better, isn't it? Because he is young.
Touching wood, I think all Tottenham fans are probably praying that those hamstrings just survive as long as possible, because I think that's a big part of it all. Mohamed Kudus, he has been, speaking of electric hamstrings, like he's been brilliant. Successful take on in the top 2% in the top 5 leagues with 3.93, 38 million. Another one that was a quiet one. This, I think a few people were kind of excited by him, but he's been a live wire in a team that's sometimes been a bit drab.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he'd have got a lot more praise this season had Jared Bowen not been outstanding in this West Ham United side, because to score 13 goals, as you say, for a side that haven't been at their best this season is clear for everybody to see. I think is a really remarkable achievement. I love players that can take people on, and that's why that successful take on stat really jumps out at me. I always think when you're facing a low block, when you're struggling to find that key pass, you need someone who's going to commit people, that's going to drag people out of position and isn't afraid to just go on a dribble and make space for themselves. And Mohamed Kudus is all of that. And I think actually, although West Ham are moving on from David Moyes, I think they've got so many players like him that under the right manager could go on to an even higher level.
I'm going to bounce straight back to you. Kai Havertz, because we have to talk about this man. £65 million from Chelsea. Obviously, scored the winner in the final, but aside from that, it was a disappointing and frustrating time for him at Chelsea. Obviously, prior to that, so much great stuff at Bayer Leverkusen. And I think swirling around the last couple of years has been that Bundesliga tax being thrown about. Are these players, can they go and do it? He's had to deal with a lot this year, and he's really come through it. It really has. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing what confidence can do. We were talking about it with Cole Palmer. Confidence is so big at top level football. I really do believe that. And what's happened with Kai Havertz is he's come into a club with, I think, the manager having an idea of how he wants to utilise him. I'm really confident in saying that when he signed him, Arteta looked at him as someone that would play anywhere, maybe across the front line, and could drop into a slightly deeper role, maybe a number 10 position in certain game states and in certain circumstances. And then he got the injury to Thomas Partey right at the start of the season. And I think Arteta looked at the other options that he had available and thought they just lack that physicality that we need in the league. And so he moulded Kai Havertz into a left-sided 8. And I don't think he was great there, but he did a really solid job for a long time. We keep talking about Arsenal set pieces. He's been great attacking them, but also defending them as well. He always seems to patrol that near post area. He does a wonderful job of it. And then you've seen in 2024 that adjustment that's seen him go up to centre forward. The goals have started coming. The confidence has increased even further. And you're now looking at a player that I don't think people should be questioning the fee Arsenal paid for him. He's really come on leaps and bounds. And his adaptability, I mean, I've said it before. I know Kwaku's been on here, has said it before. He's Arsenal's Swiss Army knife. That's what Kai Havertz is. Yeah. And it's no coincidence that he's always in the team, even when it's not a centre forward. He's desperate to get him in the team, Mikel, because he's been great.
Yeah, it's funny how it can change throughout the season. Another one just chucking there, obviously a lot of money, but I think Declan Rice, obviously 100 mil, but he's been absolutely fantastic, one of the players of the season. Who are you going for then, Kim?
It's going to have to be Cole Palmer for me.
Simple, lovely. I would go Cole Palmer as well. I think it's the fact that we spoke about him for so long at the start and there was so much to say about him, I think does speak volumes. Special mention for Kai Havertz, because that's the kind of arc I like. We're all in this space, and you have a lot of people just shouting angry stuff, and everyone's desperate to be right. And I think he's proven a lot of people wrong, so he deserves credit for that. But yeah, Cole Palmer just for me. What about you, Harry?
Cole Palmer too. Micky van der Ven's not far off of him for me.
Yeah.
I think the impact he's had on Spurs has been not as big as Cole Palmer's on Chelsea, but it's not a million miles off.